Hello everyone, welcome back to my latest episode in my Let's Play series for Wolverine Studios Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 2017. And we are currently the LA Waves, or in real life LA Lakers. And well, there's quite a lot to update you guys on this episode. We'll sort of dive straight in really and take a look. So the first thing I should update you on is as I sort of mentioned in the last episode, we weren't performing too well. We had some cap issues going forward, so I actively started looking up and trying to find some trades, and we'll just recap them now. So we're the only team so far to have made any trades in this Let's Play series, but as you can see there, we've made 2 trades straight away. More or less as soon as I finished the last episode, I had a look, scoured the league and decided to make a couple of trades. So the first one that we made was moving Julius Randle, who we said was one of our younger players who was performing okay. I was really worried about his shooting though, to be honest with you. And we moved him for Rudy Gobert. And then the second one we made was Luol Deng for Luis Scola. So I guess let's take a look and I'll sort of try and explain my logic in terms of moving guys. So I guess the first one was, if we take a look at Randall, he's now with Utah, and we just did a straight swap. Gobert for Randall. For me, I was really worried about his shooting. So as you see, he's not done too well actually since he's been in Utah. He played those 2 initial start-off games for us, and his shooting wasn't great. Looking at his player bio, I mean he predominantly is focused on the mid-range and post. And if we take a look, I mean his mid-range game isn't particularly great. What I was really worried about was this shooting around the key, around sort of the baseline. It wasn't great. I mean, so that was the main reason why I moved him. I also felt that whilst he has a little bit of potential for him left, he wasn't a great defender. Whilst he was an okay rebounder and good passer and handler in his position, I just felt that we needed to try and move him. He was young, he had some trade value. Obviously, he's still under a cheap contract for quite a while. But I mean, the opportunity to get Gobert was too good to pass up for me. Yes. The downside is, and I can see exactly why Utah have made this move, is that obviously we're going to be paying them an awful lot of money from next year. That contract increase from $2 million per year to $21 million is going to be huge. But bear with me, this is why I've decided to make this move. He's a fantastic rebounder. He's got height. We needed someone in the centre position who is going to be a dominant force and really be a bit of a blocker for us if we're going to ever progress into a team that ultimately we want to win a championship. And I feel with Gobert in there at centre, that gives us a really good starting position. He's an excellent defender, excellent blocker, and he draws an awful lot of fouls, as you'd expect with someone who's 7'1", 245 pounds. And this is the other bit. Obviously his game on offense is very limited. He's predominantly a passer. He lives in the post, which is fine for me. I'd rather have him be effective in 2 or 3 positions, as you can see there. That's not particularly great, but majority of his shots come around right at the basket, and I'm happy for that because that's exactly where I want him to be. He's got the rebounding ability to get putbacks, and he is a good shooter of the ball in there. I don't need anyone to go and do anything crazy. I just need someone who's going to play fundamental basketball in the centre position. I felt that he would be a really good pickup for us. So that was why I made it. Randall may be the flashier player, but for me, Gobert is going to be the one who's going to have a better career. So that's why we made that first move. The second move, if we just jump into the Hoops, which are New Jersey, wherever they are. Where are they up here? Have I gone past them? it's not New Jersey anymore, is it? It's Brooklyn. I always forget that. So the other move that I made was to ship Luol Deng off to New Jersey. Well, not New Jersey, Brooklyn. I've done it again. But you'll see, I mean, as I sort of touched on in the last episode and in the previous episode, that contract is just not going to be good. He's already 30. He's doing okay for his age, but I didn't want to pay him $18 million when he would turns 34. I felt the drop off would be too great. So I essentially moved him for someone who's not as good a player anymore. It's obviously Luis Scola, who's in the decline of his career, but a single year $5 million contract, which makes the difference. So it means that we can probably afford Gobert quite comfortably now. Obviously we've got cap room, but if you think of it like this, we've moved Luol Deng's contract for Scola, who's coming off the books next year, and we're obviously going to have to pay Gobert more than we've paid Randall. So it kind of balances out in terms of salary moves, more or less. We probably lose about $3 or $4 million because of that move, but to me, we've got a much better player, and we've managed to clear someone off who we had no intention of keeping anyway. So that's why we've made those moves. I mean, as you can see there, we've got a few more million tied onto our salary for next year. I did, try to make some moves to try and see whether we could move Mozgov. Obviously, now we've got Gobert, we probably don't need him anymore. I didn't have any takers. No one was willing to take on his cap, even if I tried to move him for just for some salary dumps. The only way I was ever going to move him was chucking in a first round pick, and I'm not prepared to do that at the moment, based on the fact that obviously this season could be very up and down for us. In terms of other things, I didn't make too many other moves, I tried to make some other moves. For me, I felt that in terms of the roster, I felt Russell's been doing okay, Clarkson's been doing okay, and we'll touch on the games in a minute. But Ingram is obviously our star in the making, and he's but I didn't necessarily want to make too many other moves. I really wanted to move Mozgov's contract, but it didn't look like that was going to be the case. It looks like we may be tied up with him for a little while longer. Also, so hopefully as we move towards towards the rest of the season, there might be some openings where we could get him possibly moved on. But I mean, there was two big moves. For me, I'm really excited about Gobert. I think he's going to be fantastic for us, in the fact that he gives us that pivot position down low, and I'm really excited to see how he does with us over the next couple of seasons. Really, it'll be fantastic. I mean, in terms of how we, so I made these moves fairly early on in the sim. Really, I said I was going to sim for a month. I kind of made these moves and then did the sim. I just really wanted to make a couple of moves early on because I could just see it already. We were going to have a terrible season anyway. We obviously didn't do too well in the last games that we played in the last episode, so I just wanted to make those moves early to try and get something going. In terms of how we lined up the depth chart, I haven't changed it a great deal. Obviously, Gobert came in for Mozgov, and he dropped out of the rotation as a sort of filling in the minutes at both forward and power forward and centre positions. Interestingly, I guess the rest of the rotation stayed the same. Scholar is sort of, I said he was there just purely as a contract filler, but he's still a better player than some of these guys down here in Black and Zubac. So that's why he's still got the nod. I may actually, whilst we're here, I may move. See if we can assign Zubac to the D League, because I can't see him getting minutes with us, and I'd like to see him at least show some signs that he could fill out some of this rotation spots in the future, because he is on a good deal. He's an okay defender. Well, he's not an okay defender. He's actually a pretty good defender, but just that rebound is not great. So it'll be interesting. Let's send him to the D League, see if he can get some minutes there, and see if he can show us that he warrants a place in our our rotation over the next few years. I mean, at 19, he may possibly develop, but I'm not holding my hope out for him too much. But let's see how that goes. So, in terms of, like I said, we made these trades more or less after we finished this last episode in bringing in Gobert and Scholar. But you'll see up here we've actually done pretty well through the next month's worth of scheduled games. Obviously, I think we touched on last time we had the Portland loss and the Clippers loss in our opening few games. We then sort of continued that with the Denver loss. It was a close game. There was, Ingram's still standing out as a solid piece. They obviously brought Gobert in before this. He didn't have the best of games. He obviously got into some foul trouble against Jokic, but that's understandable. He's a very talented player. So I was fairly okay with that loss, I would say. We then sort of went straight back in and played the Clippers again. So I was expecting again another heavy defeat. But we performed fairly admirably, actually, only losing by 8 points. What was better was, this is what really got me, was that Gobert obviously had a fantastic game in there against DeAndre Jordan. He obviously fouled out DeAndre Jordan in 28 minutes, which is great to see. Again, good shooting, interesting. He got to the free throw line. This is what I was really interested in, that he's drawing fouls as 100, so hopefully he can put some of the frontline players into some difficulty when we play different teams, which is good to see. Ingram obviously performed fairly well. Russell didn't shoot very well. Again, he's playing Chris Paul, so I'll let him off for that one. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. But his shooting hasn't been too great. He's been a bit erratic, and arguably Jose Calderon has performed better. So there may be a question whether we move Russell out of the lineup, which I know seems a bit drastic, but if we want to try and win games this year, it may be something we want to consider. We then played Houston, and we got the win, which is good to see. Obviously Harden had a great game, but what was great to see was Jordan Clarkson stepping up for the team really with 21 points, which is great. I mean, he's on a good contract, and I was really interested to see how he did, because I consciously, back in my mind, I was quite wary about him. He was one that I may have looked to try and move or in the future, but he's did okay here, and he's done okay throughout the month really, which is good. So I mean, obviously Russell didn't shoot too well there. He took a lot of shots, but Gobert there with double, 20 and 11 points, which is good. So I think he's already proven his worth. We then went into Dallas and we lost that game by a little bit, but we didn't shoot very well. Gobert, it seems like when Gobert gets into some foul trouble, we seem to have been having some issues, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. It looks like, obviously Moskov did okay when he came in with 30 rebounds and, a double-double, so he's pushing there. But, we lost to Dallas, nothing really to be home about. We then got a couple of wins against New Orleans and Detroit, which is good. Interestingly, obviously, some games that I kind of expect us to win. Anthony Davis will be Anthony Davis and perform really well for New Orleans, but for us, we got some good performances. I mean, Ingram again played very well with 27 points and 7 rebounds. So he's starting to develop into a really good player already. Starting to show signs of that, which is great to see. Again, Russell's not shooting too well. I mean, perhaps we want to have a look at his shooting preferences and whether we might want to tweak that. If we take a look at the next game, Detroit, we won that quite comfortably, which is good. I mean, we limited them massively on sort of their attempts, and we obviously played some really good defence against them, forcing 17 turnovers, which is great, and grabbing 11 steals, which is really good. Ingram again, he's starting to shine already, which is really, really good for us. Ingram, Gobert are starting to do well. Again, Russell didn't shoot too well. You know, he seems to be taking a lot of 3-point shots and not doing too well with them. Maybe that's something we'll have a look at. But yeah, Clarkson's, you know, some good stats there. You know, 6-15 is okay. I'll let that one go. But he's getting the rebounds, which is good. And then after we sort of played Detroit, we then sort of went in a little bit of a funk, really. We lost to Chicago by quite a bit. You know, Rondo just absolutely schooled Russell in how to play a pure point guard position. You know, shot well, you know, fantastic assists, and only the one turnover. So something for us to think about. And then we sort of went back-to-back wins against Phoenix and Denver. Obviously getting one back over Denver, which was great. Again, Russell, you know, sort of stepped up, but again, the shooting's not great. But you know, he had a good night against Phoenix, and then Denver, we sort of got our own back with them and sort of, you know, took them to town a bit, really. You know, you can see Gobert stayed out of foul trouble, which was the deciding factor, I feel, in this game. And then we went into we yo-yoed a little bit again, sort of lost to Sacramento. You can see there that, you know, we struggled. Again, Collison just schooled Russell a little bit there in terms of, you know, the point guard position, which probably made the difference. And then we'll have a look, and we sort of then got the win against Brooklyn, which is a team I expect us to win. Luol Deng obviously didn't show us that we missed anything by trading him, shooting 2 of 8 there and not having a particularly great game. But you know, Russell stepped up to the plate, and you know, it seems like he's fairly erratic, is what I would say at the moment. So I mean, in terms of how our roster's looking, so Russell's obviously, we'll touch on him in a minute, but Calderon's been doing well in sort of the bench minutes, getting some fairly decent stats. He's obviously shooting fairly well. He's sort of showing his experience, I would say. You know, Huertas hasn't played, so we won't comment on him. Clarkson has been doing okay for us. You know, he is what he is. I mean, he's not gonna. He's never gonna set the world alight, but he is solid, which I'm pleased to see. Considering we're paying him a fair amount, I'm pleased to see him, you know, performing okay. Then we've got Lou Williams, who from the bench has been fairly good. He's shooting quite well. You know, he's only playing 24 minutes, and he's making an impact off the bench with his points, which is what I expected. Nick Young hasn't really played. Ingram has been playing fantastically, which is I feel I've said this 3 or 4 times now, but it really is good to see. Nice to see when the guy they picked as a rookie as a second pick is actually starting to perform and starting to show signs. My question with Ingram going forward is, obviously he's got some really good stats and he's shooting very well. It's just whether he will start to stretch out and be a star for this team. You know, his scoring ability is not too great, only 56, which to me indicates that he's not going to dominate the ball, which in a way is fairly good. But to me, I think he's probably going to be a glue guy. I think he's going to be one of those who will be a really, really good second option for us. So we might still need to try and find that star who's going to get us into the championship contention over the next couple of years. You know, Meta World Peace hasn't played, so we won't comment too much on him. Larry Nance has been doing fairly well for us. You know, for me, the reason that he's getting the starting spot is that he's got a good range to his game. You know, obviously it looks like on the right hand side in mid range he's been pretty terrible for us, but you know, in terms of range and stretching teams, he's been doing fairly well for us. So he has been shooting pretty well. So I'll keep him in the rotation, I think, for now, which is, you know, it's good. Robinson hasn't played hardly any minutes. You know, 2 games for us. I don't think he'll get many minutes. Scola hasn't been doing too well. You know, he's getting marginal minutes. He's playing more or less every game, but I mean, he's a veteran, so I expect him just to play some garbage time most of the time. His stats aren't anything to go home about anymore. Zubac hasn't played at all. Tarek Black hasn't played at all, really. and then Mozgov has sort of moved into that sort of bench position, and he's not a great shooter. You can see that here. He's pretty weak around sort of the baseline, but he's got the height and he's got the weight. I mean, you hear the NBA teams say that so often, but it is quite essential to have players who have height and have weight, who can boss people around a little bit, and that's exactly what I want Mozgov to do. I mean, I don't really want to pay someone $16 million a year to do that, but if we can move him, we will. But for now, he'll just have to make do and get minutes from the bench. And then Gobert, is like I sort of touched on earlier, has been performing really well since he's come in. I'm not expecting him to score huge amounts of points or to dominate that, but he's been rebounding and getting lots of blocks and making things happen on defence, and which is really helpful. So the one final player I wanted to touch on in a little bit more detail was D'Angelo Russell. So we sort of touched on that his consistency has been a bit hit and miss, and I had a look at this, but his consistency in terms of his ratings is fairly good. I mean, he should be a fairly consistent performer. It may be something to do with his experience and age, that we'll have to look at and take into consideration. It's only his second season in the league, so possibly he's still finding his feet a little bit. But for me, I think it's the shooting that's not been great. So, and the one thing that stands out to me is obviously his mid-range game is not particularly too great. He seems to be taking a lot of shots from this left-hand side position. That may be due to strategy, that he may be there for a reason, but he's obviously not making a lot of them. But for me, the thing that stands out is that his shooting when he's going into the basket has been pretty terrible. And if we look at his actual preferences, he dominates obviously above the break, so around here. So this is obviously a concern. He's around sort of the outside the 3-point line, and this position here. So perhaps we might want to focus on possibly trying to develop his keep him on the outside a little bit more. Maybe I'm not too sure. The thing that he obviously doesn't take a lot of corner shots. He's mid-range. He takes a lot of mid-range shots, and he's fairly good in mid-range. Obviously these two standing out, and this one he hasn't taken that many shots from there though. But this one for me he seems to be dominating a lot from the left-hand side of the court, and he's not been too successful there. So let's take a look at this. Let's see what we think about what we can do. So if we go into our strategy, let's have a look at him. So let's send him for a month, see where we can develop this. So for me, I think if we go back, let's take a look at this. So let's have a look at his stats. And one of the great things about Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball or any of their games is that they have so many advanced analytics stuff, different stats and things, which is really, really good to see. And it also has this help button, which gives you a real good understanding. If you don't know what a stat is that they have, it tells you what it is, and you can Google all of these and look them up, and you can find the initial thoughts behind them and how they're derived from, and get a real good understanding. But for me, I think one of the things we want to probably have a look at is probably around his advanced stats and around his assist percentage. For me, I think that he is fairly good in assists, and I think he might not be utilising it as much. Obviously only 6.7 per game, so for me I think it might be we might want him to pass a little bit more. Obviously he's predominantly in pass mode anyway. Maybe we want to focus on that a little bit more, or possibly limit his pull-up jumpers, because that might be where he's struggling a little bit. So possibly we want a bit more drive and pass against pull-up jumper. So let's have a look. Let's see if we can make some changes and see whether we can improve his shooting. At the end of the day, if not, he still has really good trade value as his age. So possibly not. So let's drive and pass more at the expense of let's say let's shoot off the dribble. Let's do that. So what we've done there is we've told him essentially in training that we want him to focus a little bit more on that. So over the next month, we should see that his ratings for driving past, which is just this little orange segment here, should increase slightly against his shooting. So hopefully his pull-up jumper should come down. We should see that go up, which hopefully, fingers crossed, it improves his shot selection. If we can get him driving to the basket a little bit more, we might get a bit more action. Obviously, that summarizes up his shooting. If we look at some of the other statistics along here, his assists and turnovers not particularly great. Assists per game 6, turnovers per game 3. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. For me, he's still 19. He's still under a good contract. So we'll see. We'll see. We've only played a month. Hopefully that starts to sort of navigate towards sort of the mean, sort of the average for him, and we can get a better performance out of him. So, that's where we are in terms of this at the moment. We're 6 and 7. If we take a look at the conference standings, you can see there that we're in the bottom section of our actual sort of division here. But in the conference, interestingly enough, we're just outside the playoffs, which is great. I expected us to probably be around this sort of area around New Orleans and Utah are really. So to see after 13 games, we're just outside a 500 record, which is fantastic. If we look at some of the other teams, the obvious ones, Golden State obviously dominating, haven't lost a game yet. The usual suspects, San Antonio, still up there in the Western Conference. The Anchors or the Clippers, sort of mediocre. The usual suspects. Interestingly, Oklahoma City are sort of struggling a little bit at the moment. Obviously, post Durant, looks like they're still still trying to find their feet a little bit. If we look at Westbrook, everyone knows in real life obviously he's averaging that triple double, which is amazing. But in here he is close to it. He's obviously dominating points and assists, and rebounds. So it'd be interesting to see how he does and how close this is to how he's been performing in real life. If we look at the Eastern Conference, let's go to the conference rather than the divisions. You can see the two, Golden State for the West Conference, Cleveland for the East. LeBron James and Steph Curry seem to be dominating the headlines for us at the moment in this playthrough. Again, they haven't lost a game. Boston is the sort of one that's really interesting, is that they've started really well, 12-4, which in real life they've obviously had a really good season. Nearly 50 games now for them they've won, but they've obviously done very well in terms of in here. Looks like Isaiah Thomas is having a fantastic season. 21 and 10, so that's interesting. See how Al Horford's been doing for them. So yeah, he's been doing fairly well. He's obviously on a huge contract, isn't he? But so if we take a look at the other guys, Indiana is still up there. Chicago seem to be holding their own. Philadelphia, surprisingly, are just outside, just in the playoffs. So obviously, in this playthrough, some of their rookies have sort of come to fruition. Really, Miami are obviously rock bottom. They've obviously hit some lows there. Obviously, it looks like probably Dragic and stuff haven't been performing too well. Probably doesn't help that looks like Whiteside's been injured, or he's injured, slightly injured. Bosch is obviously out for a suspension. So yeah, that's interesting. I had to look at this earlier, and one that stood out for me was Milwaukee, obviously struggling. So I had a little look at them, and you can see why. Giannis is out for basically the whole season, and he obviously was playing really well up until early on. He obviously played 11 games and then he's bust, so they're probably going to go into a bit of a tank mode now for them. Let's have a look at the leaders across the association. So looks like LeBron James and Russell Westbrook sort of straight up there with Steph Curry, usual suspects with points. John Wall surprisingly is leading the assists per game, above Westbrook and Paul and Rubio. Isaiah Thomas is obviously having a fantastic season so far, for the first month or so. D'Angelo Russell for us is sort of in there, but if we look at his assists per turnover, he's probably going to be further down. But we haven't got anyone who's sort of standing out in terms of points for us in terms of LA. Ingram, Russell, obviously just in there, but look at rebounds. This is exactly why I got Gobert second in the standings. I expect him to be up there throughout the length of his contract. Again, usual sort of players. Probably this is one of the reasons why Philadelphia have been doing so well, is Embiid has sort of really developed. Let's have a quick look at him. If we go to Philadelphia, so it looks like he's got some good stats actually. Looks like he's a really good defender and shot blocker and rebounder, and he's averaging double. So it looks like he in comparison to real life, where he's had those injuries, but it looks like he's had a fantastic start. So he looks like he's one of the main reasons that Philadelphia are looking at playoffs at the moment. Let's take a look at the blocks and steals as well. So again, Gobert in that top 10, which is great. Embiid, look at that, 3 blocks per game. He's basically a young version of Whiteside. That could be scary, and we could see him becoming one of the best players in this playthrough if he carries up and doesn't get injured. In terms of steals, usual suspects it looks like. Curry straight up there, but interesting. So I guess we won't play any actual games, I don't think, in this episode, as it looks like we're already sort of bordering on that half an hour mark. So let's quickly go back and have a look at some of the awards. So what we've had so far. So obviously Ingram has been awarded one of the players of the week, which is fantastic. To get that in his rookie year, which is great. So that just to me solidifies that he's going to be a really good player for us, provided he doesn't get any injuries, of course. Again, it looks like the usual players: Westbrook, James, seems to be winning sort of the usual awards. And let's have a quick look at the power rankings. Interestingly, San Antonio is above Cleveland, even though Cleveland are unbeaten. So obviously the strength of schedule may play a factor in that. If we look where we are, we're 23. So even though we're borderline on the playoffs, it looks like in terms of our schedule strength and how we've been doing, it's still the game is still ranked us in that sort of bottom 10 or so, which is fine. I mean, we're just outside of 500, so hopefully we can. And in terms of our actual emails, we've just got Ingram's news here. So we haven't had any fights yet, which is great. It looks like all of our players, if we just quickly scan through and have a look at the how they're feeling, it looks like we haven't had anyone who sort of, it looks like maybe Nick Young's getting a little bit upset, but that's probably over playing time. Likewise, Larry Wentz Jr., but wonder why that is, because he's been playing, nothing really should be standing out. Zurac is obviously going down, but we've sent him over to D League, so hopefully that'll help. But interesting that we haven't had any major fights or any disagreements, which is good so far. So like I said, we've made a couple of moves. We've had a fairly good set of results so far. Looking ahead through the next month or so, we've got Dallas, Toronto, Indiana, Philly, Washington. So we've got some teams there that are probably in playoff contention in terms of Indiana, Toronto, Philly, Washington. Some tough games coming up throughout this month of December. For me, if I'm looking at this now, hopefully we can get a result against Dallas to begin with. I'm hoping that we can beat Milwaukee, probably get something in Sacramento, Phoenix, and Sacramento again. Hopefully beat Minnesota. So I'm hoping that we can come out with this with being in above 500. That'd be excellent to see. I don't think we'll make any roster moves yet. We'll try and keep this settled. The one that I'm going to be really keeping an eye on is obviously whether we can move Mozgov and try and get that contract off the books. Primarily because it frees up our cap space. We've already got sort of 15 million. We'll probably have around 11 million at the moment if we stand as we are for the off season. But if we can get that, someone who can do the same sort of job, less money, that could be good. Gives us more flexibility. And for now, I know I said I was going to probably put Jose Calderon in. I might give Russell the benefit of the doubt and play him through half the month, see how he gets on, see whether we are in that borderline playoff position. If we are, then it may be a case that we put Jose Calderon in there and just see whether he can step up, because at the moment, to me, he is just a better shooter. He's a better passer at the moment than Russell, and maybe Russell might get a bit of an advantage coming from the bench against weaker opposition in theory. So maybe that might help him. But I mean, let's see how we go. Let's see how we go with the next couple of games. And I'll probably come back into the episode. We'll probably play the next month or so, and then I'll come back into the next episode and give you my thoughts on where we are as we head sort of in towards 2017 on this. So as always, guys, feel free to post your comments down below. Do you think, is Russell someone we really want to probably keep hold of? I know we've only played a month, but is he really the right point guard that we want? Do we want someone a little bit more dynamic, who's a bit of a better shooter and passer? Do we want to just try and cash in on the fact that he's got some potential now and see whether we can get someone who's a bit more ready now? Or do we leave it as is? I haven't touched on strategy too much in this. I mean, we've kept it fairly mixed, and I think that's worked to our advantage so far. But is there a particular strategy you feel we should be using with this personnel? Obviously, Ingram is going from strength to strength, which is fantastic. Now we've got Gobert. Is there something we should be doing a little bit different to when we would have probably had the likes of Deng and Randall in here? Really interested to hear your thoughts on that. And if you like the series and you want to carry on and watching, just hit that subscribe button and it will keep you up to date with the latest episodes as they come out. But until next time, guys, let's have a think about that, and let's see what you think, and we'll see how we get on.